Hey everyone, welcome back to the Long Dark. Today we're doing something a little bit different. If you've actually been around the channel for a while now, you probably have seen this one before, but we're doing another tier list, except this time it's going to be updated for 2025. So it's going to be including every single region and connecting region in the Long Dark, including the Far Territory regions. Now, how this tier list is going to work, you can see on the left-hand side, I've got four categories: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and expert. And I have the 22 connecting and main regions of the Long Dark, the entire game, on the right side. So I think these four categories represent all of these 22 regions pretty well, meaning those 22 regions fit nicely within at least one of these categories. Obviously, this is going to go off of kind of my opinion and my experience with the regions. So feel free in the comments to tell me if you disagree with a rating or think something should go somewhere else. So, without any further explanation, this tier list is pretty simple. So, we'll start with the first one here: Winding River. Now, Winding River is just kind of made to be that pass through region. You don't really stop and, say hello to the locals, if you will. It's really just you're trying to get from Mystery Lake to Pleasant Valley or vice versa, and you're passing through. There are a few wolves that can spawn in the region, and there's sometimes some loot in one of the caves that are also present in the connecting region. But other than that, not a difficult region. This is certainly a beginner level region. Up next, we have a main region, the Zone of Contamination. Now, I will say I was a little critical of the Zone of Contamination when it first came out. I didn't really think it was that nice of a region, but now that I've played with it for a while now and I know the ins and outs, it's really, really a cool region. I personally enjoy it very much. I think the Langston Mine and the Concentrator are some of the coolest buildings in the Long Dark. They can keep you exploring for a very, very long time. The region is strategically laid out, meaning there's a lot of chemical spills that you got to avoid, and poisoned wolves, more aggressive wolves, from what I've seen and what I have experienced in my own gameplay. They are a lot more aggressive than the regular variants of wolves, so that alone is a pretty big danger. And on top of that, the Far Territory is not known for being warm. This is a very cold part of the Great Bear World, if you will, the main, or I should say the island, rather. Temperatures in the zone, definitely cold, definitely amongst the coldest in the game. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put the Zone of Contamination in Advanced. I certainly don't see it intermediate or beginner just because of those hostile wildlife factors and the fact that it is very cold. So Zone of Contamination, certainly an advanced region. Next up, we have Transfer Pass. This is really known as the hub of the Far Territory. All of the regions in the Far Territory connect to Transfer Pass, and it's really just one of those places where you dump all your stuff that you collect in the Far Territory just to take back towards the main part of the world. So a very, very useful region, but I tell you what, it's a very, very safe region. There are no hostile wildlife spawns to be found in Transfer Pass. So just going off that alone, I'm going to go ahead and put Transfer Pass in beginner. Now, obviously, because Transfer Pass is part of the Far Territory, it does get pretty cold, but there's a lot of food. There's some pretty reliable shelters that are pretty warm, mainly talking about Vacant Depot. And the amount of cattails, deer, bunnies, sometimes there's good loot. I have found a bearskin bedroll in Vacant Depot before. Let me know if you found anything good, because that was really just a one-hit wonder for me. I found the bearskin bedroll, and that was about it. So yeah, Transfer Pass, just a really nice place to be. Certainly a nice place to relax. So it is a beginner level region. Up next, we have Keeper's Pass South. This is kind of like Transfer Pass in where it's like a region you just kind of pass through. In this case, you're trying to get from Pleasant Valley to Blackrock. But the thing with this Keeper's Pass is that there's a lot of hostile wildlife in a very, very small corridor. The game likes to put wolves in the middle of the road in this region, and you have really no choice but to either fight them or, try to throw rocks as best as you can to get around them. It's really not an enjoyable experience, to be quite honest. And there's not a lot of places to really shelter up. I mean, there's the trailer and there's an ice cave nearby, but that's really about it. But I guess, long-term survival in Keeper's Pass South, it's possible-ish, but it's not really meant for that. So Keeper's Pass South, I think I'm going to put in the intermediate level of difficulty. Certainly wouldn't want to start there if I was a beginner, but it doesn't take too much practice with the Long Dark to get through Keeper's Pass South. Next up, we have Ravine, kind of following on the trend of passing through regions here. Ravine is a very classic region. It connects Mystery Lake and Coastal Highway together. You can even get to Bleak Inlet if you climb down the rope into Ravine Basin. You can go into the inlet that way. But Ravine has no hostile wildlife, which really makes it a nice place to just kind of hang out and relax. There's deer carcasses, there's some cattails as well, even some bunnies that you can feast upon in two caves that are very, very warm. So, Ravine definitely going to be in the beginner level. The only thing I think Ravine poses as a threat, besides the cold weather, which is just, it's a given whatever region you go into, falling in Ravine is a huge problem. If you're not paying attention, you get that little quick text message and you look over at your phone. One step off the trestle and your run is over. So that's really the main threat. That's probably the only reason why it would be like somewhat talking about intermediate, but no, no hostile wildlife. It's sold to the beginner level. It's a very, very nice region. Next up for our sixth region on this tier list is Timberwolf Mountain. Now here's, you're talking about classic regions in the Long Dark. This is a really good one. Timberwolf Mountain, one of my favorites. It's up there. It's certainly up there. The wildlife in the region, though, pretty harsh, and especially the most recent update did introduce timberwolves to Timberwolf Mountain, which I kind of find fitting. It's called Timberwolf Mountain. There should be timberwolves there. But prior to that update, there were no timberwolves in the region, but now there are. So obviously the difficulty is going to go up. Food and trying to sustain yourself in Timberwolf Mountain late game has never been a problem. Early game, you kind of got to keep moving out of Timberwolf Mountain. Not a great place to be. Very savage. Lots of firewood, sure, but it's very, very cold. Certainly not a beginner. I would even argue it's not an intermediate. I'm going to go ahead and put Timberwolf Mountain at advanced. Just the treacherous terrain, lots of hostile wildlife. You're talking the whole caboodle, right? I mean, moose. You've got timberwolves. You've got regular wolves. Yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. You even got bears too. So that's Timberwolf Mountain, and there's only one man-made structure, which is the Mountaineer's Hut. And that's pretty cold as well. So this is definitely an advanced region. I would put Timberwolf Mountain in. A lot of good experiences in this region, also a lot of bad experiences, a lot of moments that didn't go my way, and it's certainly enough to put this region in advanced. Next up, we have Sundered Pass. I'll go ahead and get this right off my chest. I absolutely adore Sundered Pass. I love it. It is probably my favorite region in the Long Dark. I can probably confidently say that. It is savage, though, to say the very least. I'm probably going to be willing to bet it is the coldest region in the game. It lies in the far territory, so no surprise there. But Sundered Pass will have you taking a road all the way up to the main part of the region. There is a little valley there, and there's a lot of wolves in that valley. And guess what? Once you get up the road into the main part of the region, there's timberwolves. And you're not talking one or two packs. You're talking 3, 4, sometimes 5 timberwolf packs all up there just kind of waiting for you to make a mistake and walk right into them. It's a savage region, very, very cold. The terrain is treacherous, and there are timber wolves everywhere. And there's not a lot of man-made shelters either. You do have the little refuge sites, Refuge Site A and B. I believe that's what they're called. And then once you start getting up towards the final refuge area, which is right before the region ends by an avalanche, which blocks the road, but very, very savage. Sundered Pass, I think, is going to be our first expert region on this list. If you try to push a beginner to go in Sundered Pass, it's not going to go very well. I'll tell you that right now. The Timberwolves will have you for lunch. Not a good place to be. So Sundered Pass, easily an expert level region. Next up, we have Pleasant Valley. Here's another classic region in the Long Dark. This actually makes an appearance in episode 2 of Wintermute. So if you've played that before, this is exactly what we're talking about, Pleasant Valley. Not known for its quote-unquote pleasant weather. A lot of blizzards. It's pretty cold. I shouldn't say kind of cold. It's pretty cold. But it's not the coldest out of all the regions. The blizzards are frequent. The rolling hills will disorient you. A lot of areas in Pleasant Valley that look exactly the same to, a region that's across the map. So you'll get lost pretty easily with the woods and such. Places of interest in Pleasant Valley, Thompson's Crossing, the barn. It connects to Timberwolf Mountain, so you have that little prepper cache over there as well. A decent region for experienced players, but if you're a beginner, I really would try to stay away from Pleasant Valley until you've got a little more experience with the game. So because of this, this might be a hot take on this list, but I'm going to put Pleasant Valley at advanced. I think it's so easy to get lost in this region, and the wildlife is placed super strategically too. So once you get over that little rise, there's just going to be a wolf there. So I'm going to put Pleasant Valley at advanced. Certainly wouldn't advise a beginner player to start in Pleasant Valley. Next up, we have Mystery Lake. Let's get this right out of the way, right at the beginner level. So Mystery Lake, yes, beginner level for sure. It definitely has its I would say setbacks in terms of wildlife. There's quite a bit of wildlife, but you know what though? You can see a lot of that out on the ice of Mystery Lake, and there's a few clear cuts as well, which are kind of dangerous. However, it's flat. You know, it's all clear cut. You can see what's coming. A lot of areas of interest in Mystery Lake: the Carter Hydro Dam, Trapper's Cabin, the camp office. A lot of classic structures in the game, and you have fishing huts too. So food is never really a problem in Mystery Lake. I typically find Mystery Lake, if you're from the United States, it's almost like Florida. You know how you're old, you retire, you go down to Florida. That's kind of what Mystery Lake is. You know, your character's old, you're on day 200, you want to go retire your run. You typically end up settling down in Mystery Lake. So for that reason, I'm going to put Mystery Lake in the beginner stage because it's really just that. It's for beginners, it's meant for beginners, it's laid out very nicely. You might get confused, but overall, it certainly isn't anything higher than beginner level. Next up, we have Mountain Town. Now, this also made an appearance in Wintermute. This was episode 1 of Wintermute. So when your plane crashed, you woke up, you were in Mountain Town. So another classic region. Mountain Town certainly known for its village of Milton, which has its own lore in the story. But that's, you know, you play Wintermute to find that out. But a lot of loot to be had there. You can loot the gas station, a lot of food there. You can loot Paradise Meadows. A lot of good stuff can be found there. And it does connect to Mystery Lake, Hushed River Valley, and Forloren Muskeg. So a lot of regions to connect to. You can, you know, explore the world at your leisure. The only setback I think in Mountain Town, the temperature's not bad in Mountain Town. It's just the wolves. Oh my goodness. No matter what difficulty you play on, they're everywhere all the time. They have that region on lockdown. Sometimes you'll just turn a corner and the wolves will be having Thanksgiving dinner right in front of you. I mean, it is crazy the amount of wolves that are in Mountain Town. For that reason, I think I'm really going to put Mountain Town at intermediate. If you're a beginner, I think I would probably recommend Mountain Town to you, but just because there's that extra step of wildlife and a lot of wildlife, I would put it at intermediate level. Next up, we have Keeper's Pass North. Now, this is pretty much a just chiller version of Keeper's Pass South. There are no wildlife spawns to be had here. I don't even think there's deer spawns. So this is really just a barren region. The only threat here is going to be the cold and falling. There is a bridge that connects part of the region to another, and you go over this river. And if you fall off that bridge, your run's over, which is a very sad way to end your run. It happened to me before. Not fun, but not a lot of loot to be had. Keepers Pass North, just another pass-through region. Don't stay here for very long because there's really just not much to be had. But overall, because there's no wildlife spawn and you're really not meant to be there for too long, it's definitely a beginner level region. Next up is Hushed River Valley. Man, you want to talk about savage regions like Sundered Pass. This is definitely it. Hushed River Valley has no man-made structures at all. I think it's actually the only region in the game that does not feature a man-made structure in it. I could be wrong because I'm kind of thinking about this impromptu. But no man-made structures. There are ice caves and there are normal caves, so shelter is possible. And there's a lot of unique landmarks like Monolith Lake, for example, High Peak. Some good loot can be had up there. But the amount of wildlife and just treacherous terrain is pretty unbelievable. There's bears, there's moose especially, and there's wolves especially, and they will lurk behind any corner that you do not check. Savage region to say the least, but you know what? It is a very beautiful region. If you know where to look, you can even spot a rainbow sometimes in one of the waterfalls. So that just backs up the point. Very beautiful, but it's very cold, as you could imagine. So this savage region, I think, is going to be our second expert level region. Certainly with the cold, with the wildlife, I think it very much justifies, and the lack of shelter too, very much justifies that expert level. Next up, we have another far territory region, Forsaken Airfield. I've had some mixed opinions about Forsaken Airfield. At first, I did like the region. Now I kind of find it pretty boring to play in. There's not a ton to be had in the airfield. There really isn't. There's a few trailers. Of course, you can get the shortwave radio in Forsaken Airfield. That's a main reason why you go there. A few cottages on the outskirts of the map, but that's really about it. Other than that, it's a flat map. Pretty easy to navigate, pretty easy to get in from Transfer Pass. The flat field does allow you to see your predators from pretty far away. The only threat, I think, in Forsaken Airfield is the cold. I remember I did an experiment where I went outside with no clothes on, my character, just to see how cold it was, and I got negative 136 degrees Fahrenheit. That was on Interloper, so certainly a savage region, but one that's pretty manageable, to be quite honest. So I think I'm going to put Forsaken Airfield in intermediate. I can't really see the airfield being anything higher than that, and it's certainly not a beginner level region, but if you're a beginner going into Forsaken Airfield, you might have a hard time at first, but you're going to gradually find out that it's nothing really too overwhelming in that region. Next up is Forloren Muskeg. Here's another classic region, especially for Interloper, because Forloren Muskeg has one of the only forges in the game. I shouldn't say the only ones. Forges are rare in the game, and Forloren Muskeg happens to have one of those at the old Spence family homestead towards the back of the map. Certainly a classic spot. It's just like Forsaken Airfield, though. It's very flat. Your only threats are really going to be wildlife and weak ice. Not that cold. Pretty similar to Mystery Lake, to be honest, in terms of wildlife, with a few bears around. But other than that, nothing too special going on in Forlorn Muskeg. So I think I'm going to put it in the intermediate level, really right next to Forsaken Airfield. They're actually pretty similar now that I do think about it. For our 15th region in the tier list here, we have the Far Range branch line. Now, just like Transfer Pass and the Keeper's Passes and Ravine and Winding River, this is really just another passing through region. There's a wolf or two that might give you a hard time, but other than that, the temperature isn't horrible here. And there is a cave that is indoors where you can seek shelter in. But once again, really made for just passing through. A few good things you could also find there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put the Far Range branch line at beginner level. Passing through, you're not really going to stop. The wildlife kind of tends to leave you alone if you just avoid them. So yeah, definitely a beginner level region. Next up, we have Desolation Point. Man, do I know this region like the back of my hand. Did a lot of challenges here in the early days of my channel. And I still really have a special place in my heart for Desolation Point. Now, the wildlife in Desolation Point can probably make this a miserable experience, I'm not going to lie. However, the wildlife definitely avoidable if you get eyes on them first. A lot of twists and turns in kind of the quote-unquote inland portions. You know, Desolation Point's just mainly a coastal area anyway, so there's really no inland parts. Visiting the church, the lighthouse, Hibernia, some classic spots in the Long Dark for some really good loot, especially Hibernia too. So I'm probably, with that in mind, going to put Desolation Point at beginner level. I'm fully aware that might be a hot take on this tier list. It could have an argument for intermediate. In fact, I could see an argument for intermediate. There is a lot of hostile wildlife, and it's pretty not easy to get to be honest. You got to go through Crumbling Highway, which I'm sure is coming up soon on the tier list. But anyway, yeah, Desolation Point, not easy to get to, but once you're there, it's very easy to get a foot in the door. So beginner level is, I think, where I'm going to put this. And speaking of the devil, Crumbling Highway, would you look at that? One of my least favorite regions. I've been jumped here more than, oh my goodness, somebody who's walking down the street at 3 in the morning. I tell you, there's wolves everywhere, behind every single tree trunk. I swear, it's not a fun region to be. I would not spend a lot of time here. Thankfully, it is a passing through region. So I'm trying to get from Coastal Highway to Desolation Point. I am booking it through Crumbling Highway at Mach 2. It's happening. I can't spend a lot of time there. But I will say, besides the wildlife, the terrain too, not very good. Low visibility, especially when fog comes in, obviously. But just a combination of the trees and the gently sloping hills, snowdrifts, not very fun. If you stick to the ice, you're usually okay. But this region is certainly savage for what it is. So I'm actually going to put Crumbling Highway probably in advanced, on the lower end of advanced, but it is still, I think, an advanced region. I really wouldn't see myself recommending this to a beginner because of just how savage it is. But also, a case could be made to perhaps lower Crumbling Highway to intermediate because typically it's only 1 or 2 wolf packs that spawn in the region. Nothing too crazy, but I just hate Crumbling Highway, so I think it's advanced personally. Next up is Coastal Highway. I would argue Coastal Highway's better cousin of Crumbling Highway. This highway does not look like it's falling apart. It's actually quite a beautiful region. And out on the ice, you can see a lot of really everything, some structures in the distance, Jackrabbit Island you can see, Misanthrope you can see, but most importantly, you can see your predators coming. It's nice, flat, wide open area. A lot of fishing huts too, so you're likely not going to starve in Coastal Highway. And same with cattails, a lot to be had there. Now, I would say inland Coastal Highway is kind of like its own region because it just the amount of trees and hills and stuff can really make predators dangerous there. But if you stick to really the coastline, there's a lot of really good spots that you can find, and there's a lot of really good loot to be had. So because of this, and the weather is fairly good in Coastal Highway, so because of all that, I'm going to put Coastal Highway in intermediate. If you're a beginner and you want to like dip your toes into Coastal Highway, I would say absolutely go for it. I think Coastal Highway is one of the intermediate regions that you should definitely try to get to first because in some ways it's really just a bigger mystery lake with just how many structures are in the region. Next up, we have Broken Railroad, and I tell you, Broken Railroad is one of those regions where it can go really good for you or it could go really bad for you. And I'll tell you what, most of the time, it goes pretty bad for you. I'm not going to lie. Once you enter the region, you're pretty much greeted by wolves as you keep walking down the rail tracks, and you're forced to avoid them. You really have to. It's either that or you're going to have one that follows you for a while. And then once you get past that initial wolf, you're going to have another wolf pack right outside the maintenance shed. It's really just a savage region, and it's small too, so you can't avoid these wolves sometimes. I will say the hunting lodge and the maintenance shed have some pretty good loot in them, but at what cost, right? I mean, the wolves, just every time I go there, I just hope that I don't get attacked. It's a pretty savage region. It's pretty small. Because it's so small, I'm actually going to put Broken Railroad probably, it's a battle between intermediate and advanced, but you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to put Broken Railroad in advanced. And I could be wrong. I could be incorrect about this, but I think there might be a Timberwolf spawn in Broken Railroad. But my memory could just be playing tricks on me, but I think it's up near the hunting lodge. But regardless, if there is no Timberwolf spawn still, I think Broken Railroad is a very advanced region. Very tight quarters, moose, bear, you name it, they've got it. Not a good place to be. And for our 20th region here in the tier list, we have Blackrock. Now, I will say Blackrock definitely has its ups and downs. There's a lot of structures in Blackrock, and there's actually a mine too in the I believe it's northwestern part of the map, where you can get into and find some really good things. But it's a very unique region. I remember when Blackrock first dropped, I was very invested in exploring it. And it was a very good time. But here's the thing, littered with timberwolves. I mean, it's just like Sundered Pass. Ragged terrain. There's a shattered valley that cuts right through the heart of the region. You can get pretty confused on where you're going. Thankfully, there are signs that point to the prison. And once you get to the prison, that's even more good loot, especially the bulletproof vest that you can find. So it is worth going to Blackrock, despite how much I'm kind of on the fence about it. But overall, I think I would classify Blackrock as an advanced region. The weather's not good, the terrain's not good, the wildlife just wants to eat you constantly. It's not a good combination. And there are a lot of structures, but they are pretty spread out. And to be honest, half of them don't even provide shelter, like indoor locations do. So yeah, I think Blackrock being advanced, I don't think there's a case for intermediate or beginner with Blackrock. Just a pretty savage region. Next up, we have Bleak Inlet. Now, Bleak Inlet, oh boy, the only reason I go here is to craft bullets, and that's about it. I don't even say hi to the locals when I come here because the locals are all Timberwolves. There's no good things to be had here. Every time you go to the cannery to go craft your bullets, you're going to be meted with the same Timberwolf pack, and you're really going to be greeted by Timberwolf packs wherever you go in the region. I will say, Echo One Radio Tower, the cannery, even sometimes the cannery residents, they all have good stuff. Even the lighthouse too sometimes has, the broken lighthouse sometimes does have a flare gun for you. However, is it worth the risk? Is it worth the risk? Bleak Inlet is known for being windy and very, very, very cold. It actually might be the coldest region in the game, even colder than Sundered Pass. However, I definitely could be wrong on that claim, but nonetheless, it's cold, it's savage, the wildlife is relentless. Yeah, not a good place to be. If you're thinking about, the beginner level or intermediate level, I would just scrap Bleak Inlet entirely. Certainly not. Wouldn't even classify it as advanced. I think Bleak Inlet should be an expert. So that makes it our third expert level region. And lastly, we have Ash Canyon. Now, this was one of my favorite regions before Sundered Pass took that title. But Ash Canyon's still a special place in my heart. You go there for the backpack, and it's such a journey trying to get to the gold mine. It's really awesome. But here's the thing. This latest update that put Timberwolves in Timberwolf Mountain also put Timberwolves in Ash Canyon. So now instead of traversing the multi-level terrain that Ash Canyon has with all the rope bridges and such, you now have to deal with Timberwolves as well. And I think it's just enough to push Ash Canyon to be our fourth and final expert level region on this tier list. Again, making that pilgrimage to Ash Canyon, it's something you have to do in your run, but it got all the more savage with the Timberwolves in there. And Ash Canyon is not necessarily known for its great views of, seeing wildlife come towards you. The burnt out forest down near Bitter Marsh, the hills are just tall enough where you can't see the wildlife. And just the region in general is very small, very narrow. I mean, it's in the name. It's a canyon, the canyon walls are very, very narrow. So, yeah, I think that would put Ash Canyon just with that, and the weather too can be pretty savage in the expert level. So that about does it for the placing of the regions in each of these categories. I do want to take it one step further, though, and kind of organize these regions by their toughness. In every single category, I want to organize it from like low-end beginner to high-end beginner. So what I'm going to do, regions that are displayed now on the left side towards the legend, the expert, advanced, intermediate, and beginner boxes are going to be kind of lower that difficulty. So in this example, let's take our expert modes, for example. Ash Canyon will probably be the least hardest expert level region. And then as you go right, the regions get harder and harder until that list respectively ends. So Sundered Pass here would be the hardest region in that expert level. If you go down to beginner, same thing. I think Desolation Point would be the hardest, quote unquote, beginner level region. And yeah, there you have it. Beginner levels with the easiest, I think, in the entire game being Transfer Pass. A lot of, things to do there compared to Ravine especially, but some good loot could be had there, some food as well, and it's really just that connecting region for the entire far territory. And our hardest region, Sundered Pass, and now personally my favorite region, very, very savage, treacherous terrain, the weather, the wildlife, it all wants to kill you. And I think that's why I like Sundered Pass so much. And that's our hardest region of the entire tier list. And that about does it for our region tier list, updated obviously for 2025 to include everything, including the far territory. Now, I think in general, I do have a pretty solid grasp here of this tier list. I think our expert level regions are justified. I really think every single region is justified underneath their respective categories. However, there are maybe one or two, like Desolation Point, for example, could be a case made for intermediate, there could be a case there. But as always, with these tier lists, if you guys have any differing opinions, you think, I don't know, Keeper's Pass North should be in advanced for some reason, please let me know. I'm more than excited to read what you guys have to say about your experiences as well in some of these regions, where you think some of these regions should go, or if my tier list is just perfectly correct. Hey, I'm totally content with that if that happens to be the case. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you all in the next episode.